What does the Bible say about going to church? ? Are we commanded to attend every week? And what about vacations or travel?
Well, let's just do Hebrews. This is in Hebrews in chapter 10, in verse 24. Let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching, the day being the time when Jesus is coming back to get us. And so the Bible's really clear on the fact that we need to be in fellowship with one another. One of the things that we can get into is the idea that I'm going to church just to receive, in the sense of, I go to church, but the pastor's teaching isn't doing it for me, and that kind of thing. I already know a lot of the things that he's saying. And so what's the point in going to church? Well, the point in going to church is to have fellowship with other believers. That's part of the point of being in the body of Christ. One of the things I like to point out is that when you look in the Gospel of Luke, when you see Jesus in Luke chapter 4, it says in verse 16, so he came to Nazareth where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. And so it was Jesus' custom to go to church. And it's in the synagogue. It's before the church, but church is framed on the synagogue, and Jesus went all the time. If there's anybody who would go to church and know better than the pastor what should be taught, it would be Jesus.
Yeah.
And it was still his custom to be in fellowship on the day that they would worship. And so that's a good example right there. And so when I go to, obviously when I go to church, I'm not going to church to get taught. I'm the pastor. I'm going to church to use my gifts. And it's not that I don't, go to places to get taught, because I do. There's Bible study, books that I read and studies that I listen to and that kind of thing, so that I can increase in my knowledge. But that's not the point for me of going to church. When I go to church, the first thing that I'm doing is worshiping, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm focusing on the Lord, and I'm worshiping Him. That's what I'm there for. And then the rest of it for me, again, as being the pastor, is I'm using my gifts to build up the body of Christ. And so anybody who's an older believer, that's what you're there for. You're there to worship the Lord, and you're there to build up the body of Christ. It was the example that was given to me of fellowship when I was a young believer was like coals in a barbecue. You guys know what coals are in a barbecue? Okay, just checking.
But we don't have any. We still use propane and gas.
Right. Yeah, it's like cooking your hot dogs over a gas stove.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I used to do in California. Anyway, coals in a barbecue. When you have coals in a barbecue, you keep them all together. They stay hot. You take one and you set it off by itself. It gets cold really quickly. And that's part of the reason for fellowship. It's to encourage one another in the Lord, and obviously worship the Lord. And yes, it is a command. In this passage that I'm reading to you in Hebrews, it is what's called the imperative. It's telling you what to do. And so again, let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. Now, you mentioned vacations and stuff like that. If you're out in the boonies someplace, then, obviously a special time alone and, off on vacation and stuff, I don't see that as a big deal. But again, with me, I take that as an opportunity. I don't get a whole lot of chances to go walk into church and sit down and just receive the word. And again, I'm a guy who knows the Bible, but I still like hearing the Bible. I like hearing Bible studies. And so if I'm off on vacation, I have, for example, family in Hawaii. We'll go and visit there every once in a while. And if I'm on an island like Maui or something, I go find the local church and I go to church, because I just like to, and I want to worship anyway. And so, but then on the other hand, I was probably 2 hours, at least an hour and a half away from any churches. The last time I went on vacation, I was out camping, and so I didn't go to church. But, the whole time I'm reading my Bible and praying and spending time with the Lord. So, yeah, I
Good.
think that'll do it.
Yep.